Let's start with the famous Newshub One Word Challenge. One word to describe 2022.
Progress.
How so?
Well, I think for the National Party and where we were sitting a year ago and where we are today, we're in quite a different place. And I'm really proud of our team. I think we've pulled our parliamentary team together really well. I think we've refreshed our party, and we've also been able to attract really great talent and staff to come and work with us. And so for us, from where we sit and where we sit today, they're two different places.
If you lose the election next year, will you stand down as leader?
I haven't got to think about that. I'm just very much focused on doing what I need to do to be able to make sure we are doing our job for next year.
That must have crossed your mind. If you don't win, what are you going to do?
No, honestly, it doesn't, because I came to this job from outside, and I came here because I chose to do this job, and I wanted to go into public service. I want to go work on problems that we've got and get solutions for them. I want to be able to make sure New Zealand realises its potential. So that's what I'm committed to doing. And so for me, it's something that genuinely hasn't actually crossed my mind, or I've thought about it all.
What about if let's flip that around a bit, if you lose, will you serve your full term as an MP?
Again, haven't even contemplated any of that. I honestly haven't, because I've come in, as you know, it's been a pretty quick story having come into Parliament from outside, and I'm just focused on doing what I need to do for next year.
So you won't commit to serving the full term if you lose?
I haven't thought about any of that. It's just not on my radar. I haven't even contemplated it.
One of the criticisms is you haven't done much in the way of policy thus far. You're obviously saving it for next year. I want to dig into the couple that you do have. Tax. It still says that you'll repeal the top tax rate on your website. Are you committed to dropping that policy?
Yeah, we have. I mean, we've had to, we'd like to be able to, we are a party of low tax. We think that's important. But the reality is, when we saw those last financial forecasts, which don't look good for New Zealand with respect to inflation being there for longer, when we look at interest rates continuing to rise, risk of recession and rising unemployment, for us it just says to us there's no way that we'll be able to do that in our first term of government. And so I think it's appropriate. We come out and say the conditions have changed. It's no different from what New Zealanders are having to do across their households at the moment in terms of adjusting their own household budgets. It's no different from as a former CEO, where you have a shock that comes in and you've got to adjust your business plan to that as well. So I think it's a very prudent, responsible thing to do, because we want to be, and we will be, very good economic managers.
How much does your tax indexation policy cost?
$1.7 billion is what we talked about at the beginning of the year. And as a principle, we think that's a really genuinely good thing to do. When I look at other countries around the world, they have similar adjustments for their tax brackets for inflation. And for us, we think it's a really efficient way a more enduring way of dealing with a cost of living crisis than a rinky-dink payment going to dead people, for example.
So 1.7 billion, is that over a 4-year forecast?
That's what it's costing us on an annualised basis.
On an annual basis? That's quite a bit of money. Where are you going to find that?
Well, we're very confident. What we've got is a government that is wasting an inordinate amount of money at the moment. We're spending $1 billion more each and every single week than we did just 5 years ago. So in 2017. So we know that there's a huge amount of waste sitting in the system. Just look at the $3 billion being spent on Three Waters. Look at the $2 billion that's been spent on extra bureaucrats. Look at the $1 billion being spent on contractors and communication consultants. Look at the $370 million on TVNZ and the RNZ merger, and the subsequent $6 billion over the next 30 years subsidising that entity.
But $6 billion over 30 years isn't going to pay for a 1.7 per year policy.
No, but what I'm saying to you is what we have lost focus with this government is they spend money, and there's been a terrible conflation to think that actually delivers outcomes. And whether you're a CEO, you can use the same set of resources and get a very different set of outcomes. And what matters is the outcomes. And so when we look at it, we can see a government that's taken all the targets away off our public services. We're spending a huge amount of money, and we're not getting any outcomes for it.
So all of the consultants and communications people are gone?
No, what I'm just highlighting to you is that there's a lack of rigour around our financial management of this government's financial management of the economy and public services.
Yeah, but the question is, how are you funding your tax cuts?
Yes, what I'm saying to you is there's a huge amount of waste sitting in the system. There's projects that we'd be reprioritising.
Specifically?
And there's things that we'd be stopping.
Specifically, what projects?
Yeah, and I've given you some, $3 billion on Three Waters, $2 billion sitting there with 14,000 more bureaucrats, $1 billion sitting there with consultants and contractors. You talk about a $370 million for RNZ, TVNZ merger. And there is lots of waste sitting in that system that we know that we can get to.
National's last alternative budget was full of fiscal holes. How can we trust that you'll find that money?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're going to make sure that we do that off the back of the latest economic data that we have as we get closer to the election. And as you've seen, we're going to be prudent, strong economic managers. It's so important that this country is really run well in terms of the economy. Why? because we're a small country, and if you're a medium size and if you're a larger economy, you can actually ride out global storms incredibly much better. And so you actually need to even be more fiscally responsible here in New Zealand than anywhere else.
When was the last time you went to the supermarket, and did you put anything back because it was too expensive?
Not personally, no, but I was in the supermarket, I think, last weekend. I bought a block of cheese for close to $20, and I thought, man, that's tough, because, that's gone from like $14 to $20 over a very short period of time. But, I spent a lot of time getting out of Wellington. That's one of my belief systems, is you want to be here as little time as possible, because actually there's a bubble in Wellington, and actually when you get outside it and you actually meet with real people, you get a real sense of that people are doing it incredibly tough. I sat in on a budgeting service, and it was really interesting, just that refinancing of a mortgage had triggered the risk of a mortgagee sale, which had led to that family to come to budgeting services. And so they were having to make a whole bunch of very real and tough choices. So, I know how tough it is for people out there in New Zealand. It's a really hard time.
I want to talk to you about superannuation. You were asked a while back how much people get on super. Do you know how much a couple gets on super?
Yeah, about $550 before tax, about $450 after tax.
That's so $426 is how much a single person gets, but $356 is how much a couple get each.
Yep.
Are you across those details, and can you get across them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the point we were talking about there was actually saying, we've got a situation where New Zealanders are living longer, and we've got a belief that we should, over time, in a responsible, measured way, with lots of notice, actually enable people to understand the retirement age will move from 65 to 67.
You were scathing about the KiwiSaver GST tax and how much that was going to cost people in terms of their retirement funds. How much will people miss out on when you raise the super age?
Well, no, it kicks in at an age, when people are probably, we've talked about a long run, 20-year period, for people to actually have plenty of time to adjust to it. And so if you think about it, we were talking about, probably 2037, 2042 in terms of when people would start to see the changes starting to come through. And so we're giving people plenty of time. Every 10 years, an average New Zealander lives for another 1.3 years. And so there's plenty of there's plenty of ability for us to do that.
Is it 2037 or
Well, what our policy was is the same policy that Bill English had, which was in 2017, a 20-year lead-in and time frame to do that. And what we're saying is, look, we'll be signalling and we'll lock it in for the election, but people will have plenty of time, whether it's 15 to 20 years, to adjust to actually a change in when super kicks in. Okay.
So taking 2 years of super away from people, that costs about 50 grand, which is about double what the KiwiSaver GST would have cost people's retirement.
Yeah, all I'd say to you is, look, the reality for New Zealand is that people are living longer, they're working longer, and as a result, as I said, every 10 years our life expectancy goes up 1.3 years. If you think about 20 years notice, you've got another 2.5 years of life expectancy going to be added. It just is the responsible thing to do. I appreciate there may well be politics at play and people may want to present in certain ways, but the reality is, for New Zealand, we see other countries already at 67 years. I'm just being upfront about it and saying, over time, in a slow, gradual way, people should expect that the retirement age will move from 65 to 67.
So how much extra do people have to save over the next 20 years to make up that 50 grand?
Well, that's something that, I can't give you numbers right here on the spot, but I can just say to you.
Shouldn't you know that if you're taking that away from them? How much people have to save
let's be really clear. We're not taking it away from anyone at this point in time. What we're saying to you is we are signalling that we will have a slow, gradual increase in the retirement age from 65 to 67. We're talking about giving people anywhere from 15 to 20 years adjustment to be able to do that. That's fair, it's reasonable, it's pragmatic, and that's what we're talking about.
Over 15 years, they'd have to save about an extra $70 a week to make.
And people are working longer and they're living longer. And as a consequence, if you think about when people used to retire and where they retire today, and I've come from a workforce where I see people working into their 70s and choosing to work in their 70s.
Who's got $70 a week?
Sorry?
Who's got $70 a week to save at the moment?
No, I get it, but I'm just signalling to you that New Zealand, for New Zealand's, it's expensive for New Zealand. It's the right thing to do with life expectancy changing. Many other countries are already at 67 years.
Why not means test super?
We will talk about our policy down the road, but right now I'm just signalling to you, when I was asked the question, are we going to move the retirement age? The answer is yes, in a slow, gradual way.
So you're not ruling out means testing super?
I can't see a need for us to change that at this point, but what I'm saying to you is we're going to talk to move the retirement age from 65 to 67.
At this point, that's something you would consider, means testing it?
No, I don't see a need for us to do that. I think having a universal super system like we've had has been pretty efficient. I think when you start to talk about means testing, you end up with a whole bunch of administration and complexity that actually doesn't always flow through. But I think I'm just saying take the current system as it is and move the retirement age in a well signposted, gradual, responsible way.
When we sat down last year, we talked about how you feel about abortion, and then obviously Roe v. Wade got overturned in the States. I wonder, have you reflected on your position at all, and do you still think that abortion is tantamount to murder?
Well, look, what I've been really clear about is just saying, look, there will be no change to the abortion laws or to funding under a national-led government. I mean, we settled that issue before I came to Parliament, and it's right that it's locked and it's set for the future. And I want everybody to have incredible certainty that there is no change, irrespective of which party you vote for. There will be no change.
Yeah, just your personal feeling. Did that change at all during that debate?
As I said, I at the time, I thought it was quite insensitive, and what was announced in the States. But for me personally, I've been really clear. There's just no change to our laws coming, and I want everyone to understand that, because I appreciate there'll be personal views that people may hold around the issue. But the answer is people need to know with great certainty that there is no change to the laws, no change to the funding. We support access, and everyone should have real certainty about that.
I just wonder, if you think it was insensitive what happened there, and you saw, women having to cross state lines to get access to healthcare. Did that change anything about how you feel about it yourself? Not policy wise, but yourself. Did that change your feeling?
I guess I felt that the US and New Zealand situations were very, very different. To be honest with you, what was proposed in the US was a wholesale overhaul of abortion laws, and what we're seeing, and in New Zealand, we've settled all of that. And so for me, it's, I can hold a personal view, but the point is, I want everyone to be really crystal clear about it, that actually there will be no change. There'll be no change to funding. There'll be no change to access. Everyone should have real certainty about that.
Do our abortion laws sit comfortably with you?
They've been settled, and I'm very comfortable, as I said, under a national-led government, under Chris Luxon, there will be no change.
Okay. You've got yourself in quite a few policy pickles, either not knowing your position, changing your position, or making one up. How are you going to be able to handle the heat of an election campaign? Oh,
look, I think, give me some examples.
Clean car tax.
That was a misspeak, as I said at the time.
Yeah, but then you changed it to clean car.
No, I said to you, I misspoke the words, discount versus standard at the time,
but
right?
You don't support the clean car standard either.
No, well, we do. We support a clean car standard, not particularly this government's one. We do support a clean car standard. And that's been very clear. Simeon Brown's articulated that very well, I think.
Okay, you've had to apologise for comments you made around people in garages today.
Look, I think that's I think that's quite disingenuous, really, in the sense of what I was reflecting on, as I said, was a specific conversation in a specific situation that I had in a conversation with the community organisers and community organisation, talking about actually what drives young people into gang membership. I was asked a serious question by a journalist about that, and I referenced that example. I don't think anyone should take out of that I was dissing South Auckland at all. It's part of my electorate, to be honest.
Do you think you were misrepresented?
Well, no, but I want to be able to have a proper conversation with New Zealand and New Zealanders, and if we can't talk straight about these kinds of issues, about what causes crime, for example, in a proper, serious way, we've got a lot of things that have got to get turned around in this country, and we've got to be pretty straight with the New Zealand people about it. And what I was illustrating there was just an example where actually poverty drives young people into gangs, obviously. And so what are we going to do about that, and how do we sort that out? Just
a couple more questions. You keep saying you are constructively dissatisfied. What does that mean? And are you more of a corporate manager than you are a leader?
No. Look, I mean, I've got real-world leadership experience, and I appreciate it's outside the bubble of Wellington and the beltway of Wellington, but I just put it to you right now, we've got a bunch of career politicians in the beehive that are doing an atrocious job of running New Zealand. New Zealand's going backwards on every single dimension at the moment. We have a great country. I'm used to getting things done through, with and for people, and I'll continue to do that.
What percentage will satisfy you at next year's election?
Look, I mean, the only thing that matters is that we win, because that's the only thing that matters. If people want to change this government, they can get angry at barbecue season and get frustrated, but they've got to vote, and by voting, and 2 ticks blue, that's how you actually change the government. And I think, it's very clear to me, We have an amazing country. You know, one of the great pleasures of my job is I get to go everywhere. As I said, I get out of Wellington as fast as I possibly can. I go see lots of towns up and down this country. I meet amazing people in community organisations, entrepreneurs starting things, people in the community, and you see incredible talent and just amazing people, just phenomenal people doing great things. But the reality is, we have to be really honest about it. We are not realising our potential here in New Zealand at the moment, and as a result, we are going in the wrong direction. We're not getting things done, and the country needs a real turnaround. And so, I'm very comfortable that my outside experience is incredibly valuable because it's not working at the moment. It isn't working.
Judith Collins once set her sacking point at 35%. Is that around about what you think?
I appreciate the game, that you want to play on a beltway of Wellington, but the reality for me is I think about where we were in your own poll, a year ago at 26%, and your latest poll 12 months later at 40%. We've made great progress. So I appreciate I don't play the game like others will or have in the past. I will do it differently because I have a different set of experiences and leadership skills. And so I'm coming at it just saying, look, we're very focused on what we've got to do. Is we have to win next year. We have to be able to get New Zealand turned around, heading in the right direction and realise all the great potential that we've got.
What's your election slogan?
We'll reveal all that in the course of next year. So watch this space. Yeah.
What's the election date going to be?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think, as you've identified, there's a World Cup somewhere in the middle of September, October, November, and so it gets challenging, but somewhere in that window, I suspect. But we'll find out next year.
Will the National Party guarantee an All Blacks win?
That's not something we're seriously considering as a point of policy, is that under a national government, we don't lose World Cups, and so we're just trying to work out whether we can make that commitment to the New Zealand people for next year.
Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it.